Looking to connect to other Overwatch players just like you? Be in the know with the latest news around the game and the league? You're in the right place. Welcome to Overwatch Recall, connecting you with Overwatch podcasts with your host, Glenn Totemlydrunk Smitty.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Overwatch Recall. Today is Sunday, December 2nd, and this interview is set to go live on Monday, December 3rd. I am your host, Glenn Totemlydrunk Smitty, and today I am sitting down with one of the Overwatch Contenders LA casters, RKT. RKT, thank you so much for being here with me today to get a little bit more exposure for Overwatch Contenders. Not only that, but also the South America region, which has been looking pretty good as of late, and there's been some pretty big stories coming out of that region here in recent weeks as well.
Yes, thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity. It's really nice to have the possibility to show what happens to America. We're a small region in comparison to other regions, so this exposition is great for us.
Absolutely. So let's jump right into it. I mentioned that you are a caster. You do a lot of shoutcasting for Overwatch. How did you get into the scene in regards to being a shoutcaster? Because, right now, I know there's there's probably more opportunities now just due to broadcast.gg, picking up amateur casters and trying to get them used to, being in front of the camera or just getting used to the action. But how did you get your start when it comes to casting?
Well, I started casting Hearthstone actually. I was trying to be a professional player on Hearthstone, but also I made a lot of content and tournaments, and I started casting Hearthstone. When Overwatch released, I do make transition. Was a tough transition actually, because the dynamics of Overwatch are completely different from Hearthstone. So I have to build up a lot of skills from the ground, but I look like the scene have a lot of good players, but was missing the helping hand from the outside, like caster people making tournaments, organizations, that kind of stuff in South America. It's really hard to find. But anyway, we have players, but we're lacking of the other stuff.
Yeah, and we've even seen, a little bit of movement of players venturing into some other regions, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So I know, right now your main focus is on Overwatch Contenders. So with that being said, obviously, a lot of people that are probably going to listen to this don't really know too much about some of the South American players and teams. So, you can either break this down by group or, maybe focus on a team in particular that might, maybe stand the test of time as opposed to, some of the other teams out there. But who do you feel are the standout players to keep an eye on for South America for those that just aren't used to tuning into this scene?
Well, Klaus, well, we're talking a bit more about him in the future, I guess, but Klaus was an amazing player from Isurus Gaming. I also I work in the committee from the World Cup on 2017, and I make the decision with other people to take him as a DPS. He's a really great player. He do a really amazing job, but also there is another great players. We have Beast. And I think it's a bit known in the North American scene. Most of the top level players from South America can actually play in South America server because there is not enough people to the matchmaking be shorter enough, or the match are not a high quality. So most of them actually are playing in North American servers. Also, DPS and supports from Based Now, ex Brazil Gaming House, are really good. Dudu, Lico, Alemão, they are amazing players that, well, Brazil did really great on World Cup for us. Was a team with no Overwatch League players and have a really good results in that group. Actually, they were third on that group.
Yeah, and for the most part, I would feel like a majority of like the esports viewers, if they are familiar with South America, they would be familiar with Brazil Gaming House because they have represented Brazil in the Overwatch World Cup in both years. So and they've had some pretty stand-up moments, and like even some other DPS players have been kind of topping some of the stat categories as well. But when we kind of look at the landscape in regards to casting Overwatch, I want to kind of like bring this back to something that they recently introduced with the World Cup, that being the World Cup viewer. So for those that didn't really have a chance to check out the World Cup viewer, this is basically like a broadcasting tool, essentially. You have the ability to basically change the point of view of the camera to any one of the 12 players that are currently on the field of play. You could also do like freeform and move the camera basically however you want. You can basically like slow down time, like you can see in some of the Contenders and Overwatch League broadcasts. But for me, not only can you look at this from, okay, like this is a great tool that people can use to improve their gameplay, but it's also an opportunity for aspiring casters to go back and maybe do some of their own casting to get some practice reps in so they can break out into casting themselves and maybe, sign on with, people like broadcast.gg. So in regards to this World Cup viewer, like, how do you think this is going to kind of like change kind of like the scene in regards to what you're doing right now?
Yeah, it's a really very useful tool because allow you to fully recap an event. I do most of the job as an analyst. And when I'm casting, I do the analyst stuff. And what you can do with this is like check what really happened. Sometimes Overwatch is really fast and you miss a lot of things. Even when you're casting, you try to get the most of the things and explain to the audience what's really happening, uh, so in a way they can understand. But you miss things. When you have the opportunity to work with the World Cup viewer, you can review. Even if you cast something, you can do a regular cast. You review the match and saw what things you missed and how you can improve or how you can add them to your cast in the future. It's a really amazing tool. Not even and for players and for teams are just spectacular. It's what you need, a replay system is what you really need to improve as a team. That's a really important tool.
Yeah, and Overwatch is essentially like an arena shooter, like at the end of the day, and with so many different abilities and particle effects in the game, it's very easy to kind of like miss something. So to be able to go back and maybe look at a specific point of view, to see like how a play was set up, it definitely kind of like broadens the horizon on just the overall amount of content that the community can produce. So I'm looking forward to getting my hands on it myself. Maybe we'll even have it for Overwatch League Season 2. But for now, it was just with the World Cup, so we'll have to see where this is going to evolve from here. But, you and I are here to talk about the South American contenders scene, and you guys just wrapped up your second week out of the 5 weeks of the season. And as of right now, really not that big of a surprise when it comes to Group A. Base tryhards, ex-Brazil Gaming House, are off to a perfect start. They're 2-0, they haven't dropped a map yet, and it's important to note, like, this is a team that has essentially just kind of run shot through this region, going all the way back to the prior 2 seasons, because they are back-to-back champions, which that's not even the first case that this has happened, because the same also happened over in Australia with Sydney Drop Bears. But then you also have, teams like Upgaming and LFT OWL, who are also going 2-0 right now. But Group A, there's a lot of movement going on right now, because the map differential between some of these teams that have split the series so far is really only like ±2 at this point. So, looking at the landscape right now, who do you feel like has the best chance to kind of break out in regards to Group A, knowing that, a lot of these teams have basically, dropped, half of the maps so far that they have played?
It's really hard. Yes, as you say, Based have a really huge advantage. Actually, they have like more than 90% win rate. They only lose the match on season one against the Surus, and since there, they only drop uh, one map in season two. It's really huge what they're doing. For the rest of the group, Predators Esports, it's doing a really good job. They start really bad, but they do a transition from the roster. They have another roster. You have the first week of the contenders lock for teams that are from trials, and Predators had Spyder players from uh, trials, so they can use it the first week. So these Predators, even if they have a 0-4 loss in the first week, it's probably to be one of the strongest team. The other team that which is really strong, Quad Gaming, have an amazing results and trials, and they are doing really great. So I think they for Group A, Quad Gaming, Predators, and probably Caverna will be the top four of the team.
All right. Well, something that has been pretty prominent right now when we kind of like look at contenders, really, regardless of what region we're talking about, there is been a lot of triple tank, a lot of triple support play, a lot of goats, a lot of variations to that same composition. We've seen some teams opt in to run Winston over Reinhardt if they need something that's more dive centric. We've even seen May kind of like add into the mix over a diva out of all things. So I know like right now this has been a pretty hot button issue with the community, with the whole delete brig movement, which kind of even transitioned to a player out of the Chinese scene naming themselves delete brig, which is fantastic, which we'll talk about later. But I want to get your overall feelings on how these compositions are being ran in Contenders South America. Like, are these teams opting for a certain variation out of the GOATS compositions, or are we seeing like a healthy mix of these variations, kind of added in as the series go along?
We have a lot of things. Of course, we have a lot of goats. Goats is a really solid strat right now, and it's working really well. So teams they take the so on other regions, and so they working. So they take it and try to improve it. So yes, we have a lot of goats, but even I really don't hate so much goats. I understand they have some problems like team fights are super long. Sometimes they're just poking all the time, waiting for an, a start, an aperture. But uh, it's a lot less than when we have full dive. I remember in the previous season we have like 90% of dive as a composition. At least in South America, goats it's around 50%. I track the pick rate of the heroes, well, the best in the way I can because it's like I do it manually. I don't have any program to do it. And goats is around 50%. In South America, it's Sombra Doomfist. It's played a lot by players. In Hanamura, for example, we have a lot of defense with Hammond as a tank, with the transitions between Junkrat and Sombra, Sombra and Doomfist and Junkrat, with little variations, especially in the first point. So I think we're really okay. DPS here really like to don't really like to play tanks. So they usually we saw a lot of Doomfist, which is pretty efficient against goats, and a lot of Sombra when the Doomfist from the other team show up. So that changed a bit the situation for us.
That's awesome because, like, on paper, like when you told me that, like, I would expect really any region to be a lot higher than that. So 50% is a very healthy mix of different compositions that we're seeing, and see, even then in itself, I feel like would be something that, like, if people knew about, like, that would bring more eyes to Contenders South America, just because we are seeing a lot of different flavors being brought in with some of these rosters. So speaking of some of these crowd control heroes, obviously we're seeing a ton of Brigida, Somber Hex are kind of like all over the place too. A lot of stun locks. We do know, based off of some of the recent PTR changes that the development team, Team 4, is looking to lessen the impact of crowd control abilities. And, something that they did on PTR was they basically, lowered the damage of Brigida's shield bash from, 50 to 5. So she's not able to really get, that stun, whip shot, flail combo and just, delete a Tracer player. So Brigida might, move away from the scare tactic pick, basically, to, ward off dive. But, they're also trying to, shy away from, the loss of air control when it comes to your hero, which primarily kind of, focused on Doomfist. And to, kind of, counteract this with Brigida, at least, they basically made her more of a healer, which in itself is only going to, provide more healing, from her aura, from, being near people, which... I don't know about you, but, I feel like, a lot of people look at this and people are going to think, okay, maybe this is going to change up the meta a little bit when it comes to triple tank, triple support. But it's only going to provide even more sustain for these teams, and even, right now, in these GOATS v GOATS matches, there are some maps where there might only be, 2 or 3 team fights before the round is over. And I feel like this is only going to prolong the fights that much more, to the point where, we very well could enter, a 2-fight territory in the near future.
Yeah, it's a complicated situation. I think this is a follow-up of a problem that Overwatch, in my personal opinion, have since the start. It's like damage output is so high in this game. So why the crowd control abilities are so strong? Because with a really small window of time, you can do tons of damage. A lot of times the only thing you need, it's like you have to weigh the teams, weigh the situations, plays really defensively. But sometimes Brigitte just get the stun, Discord orb, go to Reinhardt, and they just push because the damage from the rest of the tanks is so high, you kill it. And the other problem with this is to avoid the game to feel not good for healers. It's the healing, it's super high. So sometimes even if you can cover with a wall or with a really small window of time, if you are outside the enemy fire, you have the Reinhardt full HP again. So I think the problem of crowd control, it's actually comes from this, from all the damage output. And when you have so high damage output, and I think Ashe will be a problem to this, because Ashe with an Discord orb or with a buff of damage from Mercy, he can insta-kill 200 HP heroes, and that is insane. It's absolutely insane. It's like you have a Pharah and you can be one shot by Ashe really, really quick. And I think the real problem is that it's the healing, the damage, it's so high. You need heroes with a lot of resistance or defensive skills to avoid to be melted in seconds, in less than 1 second sometimes. And I think that's the real problem.
Yeah, I was just saying, the time to kill, just, across the board, is really, short compared to a lot of other shooting games. Almost to the point where, in some situations, you don't even need any crowd control ability just to finalize that kill.
Yes, I think that's a real problem, and crowd control abilities show this problem even more, because when you're stunned, half of a second, it's like Reinhardt usually have less than half of HP, and that's a lot. He have 600 HP, and you have 2 or 3 healers on them. It's really insane. I think that's a real problem, and I think we need to understand that Overwatch is not just an FPS. You have to combine with other abilities, but damage is a problem.
All right, well, moving on, something that recently happened, at least within the SA community, was one of the players from Up Gaming, Partle, was basically looking to raise some money to, I believe it was to pay for his rent for the month so he could keep playing. And the Overwatch community like really came through. So not only did he get his full month's rent, but he got a little bit on top of that, and he's able to continue to play. And I thought like a lot of times when it comes to Path to Pro, you hear like some not so great things, and it doesn't really revolve around the players. Sometimes it's just revolving around like management or maybe a team owner kind of like being kind of rampant when it comes to social media, and just like the whole Toronto esports scene, which was a whole fiasco in itself. So like for me, like this was one of like the better moments out of the tier 2 scene, to really see the Overwatch community really come through to help out one of their own, very similar to like what we recently did with like the BCRF campaign with the Pink Mercy. So I thought that was great to see. But Upgaming is like one of those teams that has been at least right now they're sitting atop Group B so far, and this is like one of the teams out of that group that I'm really not that familiar with. They are also currently having not dropped a single map yet. They've won all 8 maps that they have played, and right now they are I think it's like 2 maps or like a map and a half ahead of LFT OWL, which are doing pretty good as well. But is there anything in particular about Upgaming that you might want to highlight, just to spotlight them just a little bit more?
Well, Upgaming is a team that his core of players it's playing Contenders since season 1. They have to go to trials. They change of organization. That's I think that happened a lot in South America. It's like organizations usually don't have a salary except a few of them. So you take the name and they give you, for example, little things, t-shirts, that kind of stuff, but they don't have salary. So if you don't have a good result, they drop you very easily. Most of them don't have even contracts. I don't think this is the case in Contenders, because they have a responsibility with Blizzard and the organization, but it's the most common in the region. Upgaming do not a so good job in season 1. He have to go to trials. In season 2 they do a bit better and get organization for this third season. I think Upgaming is one of those teams that are doing really good because they keep together and they don't change rosters all the time. That's also a thing that happened a lot in South America.
Yeah, something else that I've noticed too lately with South America for these teams is for the overall rosters, they have become more international than a lot of people would expect. Pulling from maybe 3 to 5 different areas of South America, which I thought was pretty cool to see, because for a while there it seemed like a lot of teams were just based in Brazil for the most part, and now we're seeing more and more representation there. So that's very unique, because kind of like when you compare it to the other regions, like there's a lot more. I don't want to say like the amount of players is a lot higher. That probably is the case, but it's just trying to think how I should describe this. With South America being a smaller region, like I wouldn't expect the mixture of different countries to be as variant as it has become lately, especially in season 2.
Well, one of the principal things about that is Brazil is like more than a half of the players in the region. So that's one of the things that, especially in season 1, made like most of the teams were full Brazil roster, or with one player from Argentina, one player from Uruguay, or in that case. Also, contenders grow in the region with the past 2 seasons. Now we have more active players actually on the open division for the next year. We have like twice the teams than from the last open division, and that is a lot related with countries like Peru, Ecuador, which not participate so much in the first season and now are getting to contenders.
That's awesome. So when I last tuned into South America, I had watched Quad Gaming compete. And like I've noticed like a trend with some of these player names that are starting to pop up. So in China, as I mentioned prior, we have Delete Brig. And then on South America, for Quad Gaming, we have an XQC on the budget. And that name had me absolutely rolling. So, I always like when people kind of like, I don't necessarily think it's like him poking fun at himself as a player. But, in essence, it's kind of almost like a quick cash grab or like attention grabber. And I thought that was very unique to kind of move forward in that retrospect. So that was interesting to see. And, I know in Season 1, something that I had noted about South America, especially with the team names, was I want to say like at least 90% of the teams all had esports in their name, and this season, it's kind of changed up quite a bit. So I was happy to see that. So it's a little bit less confusing whenever we are covering the tier 2 scene. So I'm thankful for that. But I want to talk about the recent split with Brazil Gaming House and their players. So for those that haven't followed the scene, basically what happened is, they had some differences in regards to, maybe it was a new contract or whatever, but Brazil Gaming House basically split with their roster. And right now they are playing as an orgless team. And, that kind of opens up the door for them to seek some outside opportunities in some other regions, which we will talk about. But, like, at the end of the day, like, this is a team that has, as you mentioned, like, really, like, not really dropped that many maps throughout what is now the 3rd season of the year. What do you think it is about Brazil Gaming House that makes them stand out against the pack? Because, it seems like in some of these smaller regions, the skill gap between, like, the top team and, like, maybe the teams that are, fighting to, make it to the grand finals or playing the bronze match. What is it that makes that line gap between the teams so distinct?
Well, Brazil Gaming House, based now, it's a team that had been working together for like 3 years. It's like since Overwatch start, there are guys playing together. Actually, they were the second best team when Overwatch, the first years of Overwatch. They were always second. Keep gaming, keep beating them constantly, and when they make they keep improving. They have a small roster change, but really not more important. Most of the players keep playing together, and you saw the result of they working together, not changing after just losing a couple of match. Uh, Before Overwatch Contenders start, Isurus Gaming was called Karma. It was the Overwatch World Cup 2017, and get to beat Brazil Gaming House in like 3 tournaments in a row, which was huge in that moment. But they don't split, they don't change things, they keep working, and you can see the results right now. Even in season 1 of Contenders, they were in the same group stage, and Serious Gaming beat Brazil Gaming House, but they keep working together, and you saw the result. I think that they have an amazing players. They do a lot of work. I'm not going to disagree that, but also they work together, and I understand that losing is just part of the process. And here in South America, a lot of teams do great, but when they start losing a couple of matches, they just split up, and that destroy the region slowly.
So it's basically a combination of not only how good they are as players, but it's also the fact that they've kind of like stuck it out through the mud. Because like I think like the best comparison I could have to this, like at least in Contenders Europe, is Bazooka Puppies, who is another one of those teams that is like constantly restructuring their roster. So it just shows that like a team like Base Tryhards or ex-Brazil Gaming House has really like stood the test so far, even when they have been kind of pushed against the wall, despite how many consecutive series they have won. But recently, there was some pretty big news for one of their players, Klaus, who is now representing South America in Contenders North America. on the Uprising Academy roster. Now, this is a pretty big deal for South America. They don't have like the biggest representation when it comes to like these other contenders regions or in the Overwatch League. So for you, like how big of a deal is the signing of Klaus to Uprising Academy?
It's huge. I think it's the most important event about related to contenders in our region, because Klaus is a really good player. Here are players that are really good. Dudu and Lico are really amazing DPS also. They have the equally level to Klaus. And when they saw Klaus playing, I think he did really good the first match. And even he's playing with 200 ping in that match, which is a really big disadvantage. When he's going to play with less ping, I think we're going to see better things from Klaus. And people will start saying, okay, if this player is in this region and no one look at it from them, maybe there is more, and you will find more stuff like that in Contenders South America, and that's really really important for us.
So with that being said, I know in South America they have multiple different streams in different languages. They have they even have like an English cast as well when they partner with broadcast.gg. So it's another way for the native English speakers to get to tune in to this region. But in your opinion, like, what is the best way to kind of bring more attention to the South American scene? Like, how can people, like, go out and really support the growth of this region so they can get more opportunities, whether it is for, players, get in trials from some of these other, like, big-name teams, or just maybe get in some more tournaments in the region as well would be absolutely massive.
Yeah, we'll have more tournaments will be great. I think maybe the change in contenders the next year will have our region. Will be great to have like a tournament from different contender winners in the different regions to show the skill mixed from every region. Like in the season 1 in contenders, like you have the show match between Europe and the States in North America region. I think like that will be amazing for us with the other regions, because we know there are a lot of teams that did great. Like Australia, they have a really good level in Overwatch, and they show in the World Cup, and they are a small region like us, and I think have similar issues like us, but I'm not super sure. But that will be great. Like tournaments from different contenders will be an amazing stuff for make overall contender systems to grow up and to be closer to show off for players to Overwatch League.
Yeah, one of the things that I would love to see from the Path to Pro, you did mention like the soft region lock-in that is going to be introduced next year for Season 1, which, a couple of people are confused with like when exactly that was starting, so again, that starts next year. Right now we're in 2018 Season 3, which would be the last season of the year. But, I would really love to see just more incentive to pull viewers in. Whether it is, maybe making sort of like region sprays or something that's more team-oriented, whether it was just for an organization or an academy team, things like that. But like right now, like for the most part, you might have like the Overwatch Contenders Twitch channel, like maybe hosting one of the other regions whenever they're on from like their main Twitch channel. But like I feel like the overall promotion when it comes to the Path to Pro is one of the big things that is missing right now, because a lot of the time what happens is they go live and there's just not that many resources out there, just due to the fact that whoever handles that Twitter account for Path to Pro, you might see like a couple of highlights here and there, but like they're very hard pressed to actually notify just the competitive Overwatch community when this stuff is going down. So it's gotten to the point now where one of the writers for the Game House started like their own Twitter handle, and they've basically been covering like every region of Contenders to bring some more spotlight to all of these regions out there. So like I just want to see them either, post more on the social media, or better yet, when these regions are going live, especially the regions that are still growing. South America is, I feel like, at the top of the list, and Australia is very similar to what South America is going through right now. Like, we need to have contenders on the launcher so, we could pull in more people, because right now it feels like there's only so much room that we're given. So, I remember when Contenders Australia started. I believe it was last season. They had it initially on the launcher, and in the first day, they had like 30,000 viewers in Twitch chat due to that, which was an astronomical number compared to what they usually pull in. So, for those that don't know, like, when South America is happening, RKT, like, what days and times can we follow Contenders South America so people can tune in and listen to not only your analysis, but your casting as well?
Tuesday and Saturdays from 6 to 12 GDM list.
All right, fantastic. So with that being said, obviously, like, right now we are in the Overwatch League off season. We had some pretty big news yesterday out of Vancouver, finally announcing their team. Even with like Washington D.C.'s team kind of getting leaked by Muma, the Houston Outlaws. Oops, that happened. So when it comes to South America, whether it is fielding a team or having like a country to kind of like be the representation in the Overwatch League, like, where do you feel like South America fits into the overall expansion of the Overwatch League moving forward beyond Season 2?
Actually, we are realistic about this. We know we are a small region, and we know that actually most of the teams probably want a North American spot or a Korean spot, or more spots from Europe. They actually have low spots Europe's in comparison because of the teams and the level that they show. But also it's Australia, it's specific division. You have a lot of places that probably for exposure they will be first in line uh, than South America. Not necessarily by the level of the players, but you have a better uh, audience to watch the games, or to follow up. The the only thing that is good from South America is probably if you get any spot in any country of South America, you will have all the people from different country rooting for that team. Not doesn't matter it's a Brazilian squad or an Argentinian squad or someone from Chile. It's the same. The people from South America will group up to root for that team.
Absolutely. So, in your opinion, like, let's say, like, you are the GM of, a future expansion team based out of that region. Obviously, you're probably looking at fielding, a team that consists of, South American talent out there. Something that we have noticed is, there's been a little bit of a trend where some of these teams are basically, like, trying to build their roster around, like, 4 core members of a specific team. So, like, Call to Panthera was basically completely poached again for the second season in a row for the Overwatch League. In some cases, like, even an entire team was signed, like, with Runaway going to the Vancouver Titans. So, would you do something similar with South America in the sense that, maybe you would take maybe a couple of the best players from each team, or would you look at a team like Base Tryhards to really build a core roster around?
No, I probably will do a mix of players in the team. I think that maybe we lost a bit of synergy at first, but in the long run, you can have amazing results. A combination between Isurus Gaming and Based can be something really powerful, and you can add some player from another team, like looking for team Overwatch League or looking for all, have really, really nice players. I think if you have the power to just pull all of them and make work together, you can have a really, really nice result.
All right. Well, with that being said, RKT, I know we are starting to run a little bit long. So when it comes to getting a hold of you on social media, or even like if you're doing anything like website based too, where can our listeners reach you at?
Well, I'm doing a lot on Twitter, on RKTLL, and you can follow me on Facebook, RKT Caster, also.
That is awesome. Well, RKT, thank you so much for sitting down and talking with me about one of the growing regions, just not only within the Overwatch scene, but just Path to Pro as well. I greatly appreciate it. And, probably when we get closer to the playoff stage of South America, we'll probably touch base again so we can get an update from you. So I look forward to that. But, I love getting to follow just so many different regions, and I wish South America all but the best, and I cannot wait to see Klaus when he's not playing with such a high ping, because he's already popping off already, and I can only imagine how things are going to be once things are a little bit more stable with his connection.
Yes, well, we really, really amazing. Thanks for the opportunity of this interview, and thanks for all this job you are doing to show off all the regions of different contenders, and especially like us and Australia, that we are smaller. It's really, really good.
Yeah, I wish everyone can grow. We are just one big community. So, hopefully this will lead into more opportunities, whether it's for the teams or just the players themselves to, maybe get a tryout for some of these big names teams that are out there. But with that being said, we're going to call it here. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Overwatch Recall, and we will see you guys back next time. Have a good night.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Overwatch Recall with Glenn, Totemlydrunk, Smitty. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit OWLNshow.com and on Twitter @OWRecall. We'll catch you next time.